Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a
Hello,
past.
and welcome back to Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host, Ruben Django Pouch. This is episode 23 of Talkin Guff. What? Wait, hold on a minute. Did you say episode 23, Ruben? Yeah, because as it happens, you might not have noticed, but episode 22 was removed by YouTube. Pretty much straight away. It was like uploaded and then just removed straight away. And I'll give you the direct quote here. It said, "Our team has reviewed your content and unfortunately we think it violates our medical misinformation policy. We've removed the following content from YouTube. Talkin Guff number 22. YouTube doesn't allow claims about COVID-19 vaccinations that contradict expert consensus from local health authorities or the World Health Organization." So I hope I am like, it's okay that I read what has been said. Obviously it is. So it was removed for medical misinformation and in violation of vaccine information or expert consensus from local health authorities or the World Health Organization. Now, initially I suppose I thought that the whole thing was a bit funny. That I was like, oh, right, yes, I've had an episode removed, I've made it. I'm a proper podcaster. But no, it's actually a load of bollocks. It's not a badge of honour. It's a total joke, really, isn't it? Because funnily enough there, as I read that again, like, I didn't offer any medical advice in said podcast. I might have formed too much of my own opinion rather than just referencing what I was referencing. I was probably inputting my own opinion, which is not allowed, I suppose. You're not allowed to give your point of view on the situation. It seems totally crazy. It does seem totally crazy, doesn't it? Like, I definitely didn't tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do for themselves. I was only giving my opinion on the situation. And I was talking, like, giving my own opinion with regards our current medical crisis and the legislation surrounding it. And this is the day after Stephen's Day. Obviously, COVID is rampant at the moment. I know loads of people have it, potentially have it, etc, etc, etc. There was 11 and 12,000 cases respectively, I think, just in the days previous to Christmas. So it's crazy. And again, I'm not a COVID denier. I'm a bit paranoid about it. I have my own health team. My mum is really sick individual, and so I'm not a COVID denier or taking for granted or trying to poo-poo COVID at all. I was simply talking about, like I said, the current crisis and the legislation surrounding it. I mean, the podcast was an hour and 15 minutes long. I'd say about 20 minutes of it was dedicated to you know, what we were talking about, the topic that shall not be named. And I referenced multiple articles, and like I said, it's funny there that it says your local health authority, because one of them was just a direct quote of Tony Holohan. You know, and I'm even afraid to say it now, even though it was a thing that Tony Holohan said, and no one seemed to notice it, and it was about the transmission efficacy of the vaccines, and I'll say no more. Like I said, I referenced multiple articles and one of my own personal experience, and they helped me form my opinion. And maybe I suppose what's going on is I'm not allowed to really talk about my opinion with regards to the situation, so I'm not, obviously. I mean, look, I just don't get it. Like, I really don't get it. How dangerous could I be? I definitely wasn't spouting, like, hate speech. I wasn't inciting violence. You know, I just don't understand how what I was saying was dangerous in any way, and that YouTube would remove one of my pieces of content. I've only got 46 subscribers or something. It's totally mental. It's totally ridiculous, and it makes people think, or it makes me think, and I'd like anyone else's opinion on this, but it makes me think like, it sort of galvanizes my opinions, because again, it's sort of censorship. I don't want to sound melodramatic, but it's like, no, you can't say that, mate. What, are you crazy? Boop. It gets taken down. And I just think that that's a crazy world we live in. Again, we don't want to happen. We spoke about with the in episode 2, maybe, the death of conversation, and that was previous to this stuff, I suppose, the censorship stuff, and that was about how the left and the right are incapable of actually conversing and holding dialogue and potentially, you know, reaching a resolution. That's not allowed anymore. And that was left, right, and now it seems then, so any public conversation outside of the local health authority or WHO consensus is not even allowed. We're not having that conversation. You're not talking about that. And that also happens on a parochial level, because I know for me, I'm like, whatever. I have issues with the situation, and they're moot. They're not important. We don't care, because it's not in line with the narrative, and you're obviously a crazy person. Again, I don't think I was giving the answers. I don't claim to have the answers. I'm not a doctor, but there was just certain, and it's really annoying, because there was some interesting things to talk about in that situation, and now it's just like, no. And so I have to just like bite my tongue on a whole lot of stuff for fear of being reprimanded, having my content removed, and because it really knocked the fucking wind out of my sails. I have to say that as well. After the initial sort of buzz of it, I was like, oh, I fucking actually put a bit of effort into that, and so it's obviously been a couple of months since I've done a podcast. But look, maybe it was there might be a silver lining to the situation, and we'll get on to that now in a minute. I did just want to say this, one of the parts, and I couldn't see now how this is in anything. This has nothing to do with vaccinations or anything, so I'm really hoping that this is not medical misinformation, YouTube. But one part of the situation that's frustrating me, and obviously I'm not allowed to go to gigs. Like, I'm a chef, and I can't eat in a... I probably shouldn't even say that, but one thing that's upsetting for me is that no one is saying anything. No one is looking at the situation, not the COVID or anything like that, but just the medical choices that people want to make. No one's looking at that in a fair and subjective way. It's just like, no one's calling it out. No one's saying, well, hold on a minute. You know, and here's another thing. It's like, I'm a musician. I played for years in a band, played countless gigs in Ireland and a few beyond Ireland, but, you know, played countless gigs. And one thing that's sort of getting my go, and I suppose these people know who they are. I've actually asked a couple of them about it, musicians, friends of mine, whom I would have assumed 10 years ago would never sign up for playing gigs that are exclusive in any way. I just wouldn't have thought that was what people would have been into. And I'm a bit surprised that no one has turned around and said, this situation isn't really fair. And it's not. You know, I don't think there's any way around that. It's not cool to deny people certain trappings and certain luxuries, you know, and that's my opinion. So I do find it a bit frustrating to see all these gigs go ahead, and for no one to sort of turn around and go, oh, you know what, we don't want to really take part in gigs that are set up for just for on the basis of medical autonomy. Anyway, I'll say no more about the whole COVID thing, and maybe for a good while. Sure, have a look around yourself, form your own opinion. I was only stating mine, and I won't do that because that's not allowed. If it's flies in the face of general consensus, you're not allowed to have that conversation. Is that authoritarian? You tell me. Put it in the comment section below. Look, other things were talked about in that podcast. Let's just touch on them really quickly. There was a couple of comments left on the Fugazi episode. One was from a Wicklow B, and I really loved the comment because it made me feel like Wicklow B had connected with the episode. And so, big up your bad self, Wicklow B. We're going to have a look at what exactly it said. Wow, nailed that one. Strong finish. Needed that reminder to live in and appreciate the present. And then there was like a okay and a fire emoji. So, big up your bad self, Wicklow B. Thanks so much. And I got the impression that you connected with that episode, and if that's the case, I'm really happy, so thanks. was also a comment from Mr. Simon M, and it sort of said, and it's been edited actually, I would love to see the unedited version, but it says, is this a pro-Trump channel or is it more an anti-previous Democrat president one? That doesn't really, and a question mark, that's a question apparently, it doesn't really make sense, but anyway. If it is the first option, I will be unsubscribing because I couldn't follow or support anything churning out that kind of scutter. So I suppose, Mr. Simon M, for anyone who watches the podcast, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm neither a Trump supporter nor a Biden supporter. I do believe that we get some sort of muddled half-truths selectively drip-fed to us via mainstream media. I do believe that's the case. And I do believe that both those men are probably total crackpots in a broken system. And if you have a look at Joe Biden, it's obvious they pump him full of Adderall and Ritalin, wheel him out there so he can make some speech. He's obviously a sexual assaulter and all as well in his past life, and a war criminal. So look, I think they're both dickheads in a broken system. And I suppose for me, son, I'm glad I don't live in the United States. I'm glad I'm not part of that electorate. I'm glad that I've nothing to do with that situation. Like I said, I'm not pro-Trump, I'm not pro-Biden. I'm not pro that broken political system, and I'm surprised that you are. And the question I have for you is, why would you want to affiliate yourself with either of those men? Because they're both really questionable human beings. The system in and of itself is highly questionable. It might in fact be the catalyst for a lot of today's socio-economic problems. Why would you want to affiliate yourself with that, Mr. Simon M? I suppose the other thing is, the bang off that question is, Trump good or Biden good, Trump bad. So it's like it's virtue signaling or social grandstanding, because it's like, I'm anti-Trump, I must be cool. Where it's just like, I'd rather have a conversation about the whole system. But anyway, there you go, Simon. Now I suppose ultimately is the answer. Thanks for commenting. In that episode we also talked about Kyle Rittenhouse. So Kyle Rittenhouse killed two lads, blew another lad's arm off. Apparently he was going to get murdered. So there was some really interesting points put across by a few people. I don't see how that's self-defense. And I think honestly, because it's just like, he went out into the streets with a gun, and did he level the gun at someone, or did someone in that gang of 20-something-year-olds who are going around armed to the teeth playing cops, did someone level a gun at the original victim? I believe that to be the case. I may be wrong. Please comment in the comment section below. But what I did find really interesting about that situation is that it just got turned into this politicized thing. It was just like, if you believe this part of the story, you're on the right, and if you believe this part of the story, you're on the left, and everything else is inconsequential or not very important. And so it turned into a thing about gun control and self-defense and neo-Nazism and all. It's just like, well, in spite of all of that stuff, at the crux of that situation, you have young men ranging from the age of 17 to 20-something, 24 or something, arming themselves to the teeth with automatic rifles, going out into the public, into the streets, to sort of be cops, defend local business, and killing people. And there's no conversation about that. It just turns into this left versus right thing. And I just think that that's a total missed opportunity. Do you know what I mean? You know, that's the real issue. At the crux of at the crux of the problem is just, people are arming themselves and like being, and killing people. That's really bad news. It happened like over a custody argument on the porch of some like normal people's looking house. They just get into this heated argument, and the guy goes into the house, comes out with a gun, shoots the other guy dead, and they're all just like, oh, I didn't want this to happen. Just like, you're fucked. You know that no one else does that in the world. You fucking savages. And you want to turn it into, no, this is the greatest country in the world. It's like, what? People, you're killing each other. And so, I suppose I would have thought that Kyle Rittenhouse should have gone down for something. He should have gone down for, like, whatever. Deadly weapon, unregistered deadly weapon or something. I don't fucking know. Jesus Christ. What's to be learned from that situation? Whew. And again, it just turned into this, Biden's a dick or Trump's a dick. It just turned into this total bullshit again. And, you know, I seen Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink talking about it, and obviously I like Joe Rogan, and I've said this a lot of times, and here's a case in point. He can be so deceptively American, deceptively stupid. He's going on about how this is the greatest country in the world, and blah, 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 and he defended himself, and I'm just like, Joe, man, why don't you have, and, you know, the left want to turn this into X, Y, Z. It's just like, why don't you have a chat about the fact that someone died, man? Or two people died. Another guy got his arm blown off on the streets. Like, that's not what you want for your society, surely. But no. And he also had a chat about China in that episode of the podcast where he talks to Jocko Willink. And they're talking about China and so righteously indignant about how this is the greatest country in the world and China wants to take us over in the next 25 years. And they have the cheek to make these sort of propagandist movies where a Chinese super... action hero takes on a Navy SEAL and kicks his ass at the end to free, you know, because they're making anti-American movies. It's called Wolf Warrior, I think, and Wolf Warrior 2. And they're talking about this, like, how awful it is. It's just like, but that's every American superhero movie or action movie from the 80s up. It's like it's either the Chinese, the Russians, the Muslims, you know what I mean? They're the only movies you make, dickhead. And they've made two of them in China, and you're going mad. And how this is not to be tolerated and all on an international level. Get a grip. Because the other part of it is you're talking about how awful China are, and I'm not saying China looks like a pretty fucked up institution as well. They definitely disappear motherfuckers. They definitely, you know, it looks like there's questionable human rights shit at hand. But I mean, most Chinese people I know, when I ask them, do you want to go back to China? They're like, yeah, I'm just here for the money, motherfucker. I'm going back to China. So, you know, I don't know. It's hard to figure out exactly what is the situation there, but I've no doubt that they're crooked bunch of fucking gangsters because they're not even communists. Let's be real. But it's just like Joe and Jocko are talking about this stuff. I was like, America is the worst bunch of motherfuckers for that shit. You started all of that shit. CIA been running around like they fucking own the place since the 50s, man. What are you talking about on your high horse talking about how awful China is and their foreign and domestic policy? You've got the worst government on planet Earth. Everyone knows it. You're scumbags. So I thought that was weird. Yeah. Another thing that I touched on was I'm having these mad anxieties these days. Health. All related to health. And so I've been getting mad anxious about my health. And I suppose it might be coincide with coronavirus because a couple of years ago, having lost a bit of weight and got back into shape, I felt like I was in the prime of my life. Now that did slip in the last year. And in the last couple of months, I've been trying to get it back together. And straight away, as soon as you make the effort to exercise, I just feel better. It's the only thing that makes me feel better on a consistent basis. And so it's numero uno. There's no doubt about it. And it's apparently really good for your immune system as well. Yeah, and so I was having some health anxieties, and I do have a fucked up rotary cuff, and I associate it with something else wrong, like I've got that arm cancer. I took a magic mushroom every day, one magic mushroom a day for 14 days, okay? And after I did that, I felt freaking awesome. I'm serious. I had watched this thing, because obviously I smoke cigarettes like a motherfucker. I smoke pot. Ganja weed like a motherfucker, and I have no idea where that ganja weed comes from. I smoke roadies with roaches in them and all. Like, it's really irresponsible shit, and it has to stop. It has to go, and I'm having a really fucking hard time with it. But I was nearly there, and it was on that 14-day sort of microdosing session that I did for myself. I'm gonna get, I think my mate is gonna give me 14 magic mushrooms. I'm gonna do it again and try and kick the fags full time in that 14 days. But next year, man, I'm going up to Calorie or fucking Victoria's Way or wherever the hot spots are, and I'm going to pick 1,000 magic mushrooms and eat one a day. I think it's where it's at. I'm telling you. 100%. Again, it's like we were probably doing that shit hundreds of years ago, but the more we know, the more knowledge we acquire, the less we know about being human beings and creating an environment that is suitable for the human spirit, which we just don't do. Look at this shithole out there. It's awful. I hate it. So yeah, get on the magic mushrooms. That's what I would say. Anyone out there have a few? Give us one or two or 14 or 100, whatever. I would, and here's the other thing. I don't want to take them recreationally. One of my biggest fears in life would be to hallucinate in any way. I just wanted that one a day micro dosing and ting. Another thing we talked about was how the format is going to change, and that's why I'm trying to move fast through this podcast, because I've decided that I'm going to change format. We're going to make it into one topic every time, just one. Usually, you know, we do 2 or 3 topics and a bit of pepper. Now, we might do pepper a couple of little, like, 1-minuters around the place. Like, oh, did you see? Have you heard? Whatever. But in general, we're going to pick one topic, and it can be anything. It can be like a political thing, which obviously, you know, I get into. It can be like I watch this movie, whatever the fuck. But I'm going to try and turn it into just 20-minute bite-sized bangers. Except for maybe when we get guests, then we'll do a full big long one. But in general, it's just going to be bop, 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 little hitters that you can bang into your face and get into you on the move, yeah? 20 minutes long, one subject. That's what we're going for. And it'll make it easier for me to bang them out in quick succession. So you won't be getting one of them once a month. You'll be getting one of them every week. So, yeah, that was the thing. We're going to discuss. That was the thing I spoke about. Because, again, I didn't mean for the podcast to become so politicized. But I suppose I just into that shit. And it's what I fill my zeitgeist with. But maybe I could just then bang out a political one. Boom, one about a movie. Boom, one about these new trainers I got. Whatever, you know the fuck. So, that's the way it's going to be. Next week, we're going to talk about my previous employers, a great bunch of wankers called Aramark, who own a Voca in Ireland. That's going to be a really interesting one, because there was a great article in the Irish Times, and we're going to go through that article, and I'm going to give my own personal opinion on things that are said in that article. And not that I know everything about the situation, but I might know parts of it that, you know, other people don't. And I'll go on the motherfucking record, Joe, here on Talkin Guff. Whew. I did watch a movie last night, and it's funny because it sort of ties in with what we're saying here. I watched a movie called Just Look Up, isn't it? It's not called Don't Look Up. It's called Just Look Up, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio, star-studded cast. Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, whatever her fucking name is, Jennifer Lawrence, Timothy Chalamet, blah blah blah, on and on. Ron Perlman, what's her name? Meryl Streep. It's Meryl Streep, isn't it? Fucking on and on and on. The film is made by Adam McKay. Adam McKay is a great filmmaker. He's made a good few bits and bobs. But he made a movie that I absolutely love called The Big Short, which is about people who bet against the subprime housing, or against the mortgage bonds, which was like never heard of before, because they knew they were going to, basically the 2008 subprime mortgage bond crash. And it's really fucking interesting, and it explains it in a way, it makes it easy to understand. It's actually really good, man. Steve Carell, Christian Bale, Brad Pitt, Brad Pitt's in it, and so on. It's The Big Short. It's awesome and really interesting subject material, and it makes it really easy to understand. So I think anyone should go watch that. But last night I watched Just Look Up, and I suppose initially I was like, I just saw briefly an ad. Adam McKay, I like him. It's got, look at all this star-studded cast, based on real events. I was like, oh, okay, right. And Jesus, man, I'm not gonna lie to you, it took about fucking half an hour for the penny to drop that the real events that he's talking about are not the actual catalyst, the story are. It's the way the fucking Jesus, man. It's a really interesting, really clever movie, and I suggest anyone, or I implore anyone to check it out, because it's not really like anything you've ever seen before, and it's fucking spot on in parts. And I suppose my take on it might be my take or my perspective, because I was saying someone, they leave it sort of ambiguous or open-ended, but you'd be surprised that this movie would get made in this day and age. And again, it's Netflix. I think Netflix are fucking, you know, pioneers for that shit. They're a bit like Channel 4 in the 90s in their own respect, because I don't see how a major Hollywood studio would have made this movie. It's fucking a top of the range satire and sort of social commentary. It's beautiful, it's subtle, it's nuanced, it's pretty much perfect. So big shout out to Adam McKay. Anyone seen it? What do they think? Comment on it in the comment section below. Please let me know what you think about the proposed new format. I think it's a better idea. Just comment on any part of it you want. What do you think about the fact that the episode 22 was removed? Do you think that that's a place we do want to be? Do you think you have to watch out for misinformation and dangerous human beings such as myself who might coerce or fool you into doing something foolish with your own health? What do you think? That's it. We're only like, it says 25 minutes on the clock. It might be less by the time I edit it. It might be more by the time I add the take another photograph. But happy Christmas. We're coming up to the new year. Happy New Year. I hope everyone's doing all right. I know it can be a bit of a bummer of a season, but I got through it, I think, pretty unscathed, and, you know, touch wood. Hopefully out there everyone else did too. I love yous. I'm sorry it's been a while, but I'm fucking back, yo.
Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past at one with the ground.